I'm going to show you how you can solve quadratic equations by completing the square. If you're given this equation, your first instinct would probably to solve it by factorising. So I need two numbers that multiply to give me negative 7. So that could either be negative 1 times positive 7 or positive 1 times negative 7. However, neither of these add to give me 4. So I need to abandon that as a method. However, I can use completing the square. So I have this coefficient, and if I was to expand this bracket, I would get x squared plus 4x, this squared, plus 4. So looking at my original equation and this expression here, the difference is 7 subtract 4 is negative 11. So I can say that x plus 2 squared subtracted 11 is also equal to 0. Once again, I had this equation equals 0. This equation and this equation are nearly the same, but they've got a difference of negative 11. So therefore, this must also equal 0. Now, if I solve this equation by balancing, I can add 11 to both sides of my equal sign to give me x plus 2 squared is equal to 11. I can now square root both sides to give me x plus 2 is equal to the square root of 11, but it can also be equal to the negative square root of 11 as well. Subtract 2 from both sides of the equation, x is equal to positive or negative square root of 11, subtract 2. And to tidy up, we can say that x is equal to square root of 11 subtract 2, or x is equal to the negative square root of 11 subtract 2. You can even tidy this up a little bit nicer. Negative root 11 plus 2. Let me give you a slightly different example. 3x squared plus 6x subtract 4 is equal to 0. Now, because this is an equation and not simply an expression, which wouldn't have the equal sign there, I am allowed to divide through by 3, and the equation will not remain changed. So if I divide by 3, x squared plus 2x subtract 4 over 3, 0 divided by 3 is still 0. Now complete the square. X, half of this coefficient, and if I was to expand that, I would get x squared plus 2x plus 1 squared, which is 1. Now, the difference between this equation and this equation, this is minus 1 and 1/3. So I've got minus 1 and 1/3, subtract 1 gives me minus 2 and 1/3. So I can therefore conclude that x plus 1 squared subtract 2 and 1/3 is also equal to 0. Now solve by balancing. X plus 1 squared, add 2 and 1/3 to both sides is 2 and 1/3. Now my next stage is I'm going to square root everything. So I think what I will do is I will convert this to a improper fraction. So this 2 is comprised of 6/3 plus 1/3 is 7/3. So now I can square root, giving me x plus 1 is equal to the square root of 7/3. Remember, can also be the negative square root. Subtract 1 from both sides gives me x could equal 7 over 3, subtract 1, or x could equal the negative square root of 7 over 3, subtract 1.